Hi everyone, thanks for joining in. I'm excited to have Petronella McGovern with me. Hi Petronella.
Hello, everyone. Thanks for having me tonight.
So, for those who don't know, Petronella is one of our associated authors. So, great to have you. I've spoken to you quite a few times before, and great to have you back with a new book.
Yes, very exciting.
I'm just checking I don't know if there's a technical difficulty. Oh no, it is coming through all right, I think. Yeah, sorry, I thought it wasn't coming through, but no, that was just a little bit of a technical hiccup. So just a little bit about Petronella, for those who don't know her. Petronella is fascinated by what makes us tick, the lies we tell, and the secrets we keep. She is the best-selling author of 6 Minutes, The Good Teacher, The Liars, and her latest book is The Last Traits, which I can see a wonderful
a wonderful
big backdrop of your last book, which is great. Her books have been nominated in the Ned Kelly Awards, the David Awards, and the Australian Independent Bookseller Awards. The Liars was selected in the top 100 for Big W and Better Reading list for last year. And Petronella has a Master of Arts in Creative Writing and tutors also in creative writing. She grew up on a farm in central west New South Wales and now lives with her family in Sydney on Gadigal country. Among other adventures, she was worked on a summer camp in America and travelled in Eastern Africa, which inspired parts of her 4th novel, The Last Traits. So thank you very much for joining us again. Always love talking to you and always love reading your books. Just wondering if you want to start off by telling us a bit about The Last Trace.
Yes, I will. Well, it's absolutely lovely to be here and lovely to have the Global Girls community. We love the Global Girls community. And I feel like I was one of the very first authors back.
Yeah, I think you were, weren't you?
Yeah, so I feel I've got a lot of connection with people. So The Last Trace, The Last Trace, it follows siblings. It's a story about siblings and secrets and the traces we can never erase. So it follows Lockie, who's about 37 years old, and he's a water engineer who normally lives in Eastern Africa or works in Eastern Africa, but he's in the snowy mountains in New South Wales in the family's cabin, kind of hiding away from work, but we don't really know why. And he receives a request for a DNA test from a woman he met in America. And he can't remember the night in question that he met her. He's been having memory blackouts, and for various reasons, he freaks out, completely panics, and thinks, oh my God, what if I've committed a crime and I don't remember? So he's going into this total panic about it, but he doesn't want to tell anyone. And in the meantime, his sister Sheridan comes down from Sydney to stay at the family cabin for the Easter weekend with her kids. It's supposed to be this lovely family Easter together, but various tragic incidents happen, and Sheridan feels she can't trust Lockie anymore. And she says to her brother, you need to go back to America, you need to sort out this DNA thing, find the woman, take responsibility, and figure everything out. But little does Sheridan know that she's in fact setting off a murder investigation and secrets that will explode through the whole family.
And I've just finished reading as well. Here's my copy. Whoops, it keeps disappearing. Really want to shout out about your book. I gave it 5 stars, so hope everyone goes out and buys it. And
thank you.
Yeah, really, really enjoyed it. It's sort of lots of twists and turns along the way, aren't there?
Yes, I do. I love to read twists and turns, so that's what I love to write. I really like to think the reader's going in one direction and then take them off into a different direction.
Yeah, and I certainly felt that. I was interested to read that you travelled in Eastern Africa. What did you actually do there?
Well, I was only travelling. I wasn't working in water aid or doing anything useful at all. I was on on one of those overland truck trips. So we were camping in national parks and went to gorillas. So I think we went through about 8 different countries. But we were held up by a gunman, which was pretty scary, a soldier. Well, it's back when it was Zaire and the government hadn't paid them and the soldier was holding us up for money.
Okay.
Yeah, that was quite scary. But as part of my day job, I do work on with various aid organisations on their projects, on their reports, and so I was interested in, this idea of this Lockie who looks like he's got it all together, who's helping communities overseas, but actually he's got various secrets, and he's people think he's a hero, but he does not feel like a hero at all.
And the family relationships are quite interesting, I have to say, in the book. And I think you've got a few brothers and sisters yourself, don't you?
Yeah, so I'm one of 5 siblings. So I've always been, interested in family dynamics, and I've got my grandparents are one of 6 and one of 11. So there's a lot of family. Wow. But the whole DNA thing, I kept thinking I really should do a DNA test, but I'd done so much research about stories and and surprises that happened that I was so nervous to do a DNA test. And my siblings, 3 of them look like mum and one of them looks like dad, and I don't look like anyone. And they always said, "Oh, you're the adopted one." So I kept putting off the test, and I'm like, I've got to do it for research. And finally, I did it, and which was good because originally I just did a scraping in the inside of the cheek, but that's wrong. You actually have to spit in a tube, and it takes a lot of spit. And I sent it off, and it goes to Ireland. And nothing happened. It just disappeared. And I went, oh, that's a relief. I guess it's lost. That's the universe talking. And then it turned up months and months later. But there were no surprises except that one sister, so I sent the results around to everybody, and my sister said, oh, I did a DNA test years ago. Yeah, it seems to match.
So no surprise people have turned up yet.
No, just sort of distant cousins from New Zealand who I didn't know were there. So.
Yeah. Oh, well, that's nice. I've done a couple of DNA tests myself because I did one to see like the heritage of where you're from, and then I did another company to see if it would be the same, and it was a bit different.
Fascinating.
So
it was a bit different. Yeah. Well, that's interesting. Yeah. Well, see, part of my inspiration from this book was partly some of the research I was doing for the Liars, which was about how police are using DNA forensically. And then the other was a friend of a friend did say he did a DNA test and discovered that his biological father was in fact a sperm donor.
Oh, okay.
And, they'd never talked about it, so it was a complete shock. But once he got over the shock, he said, well, I want to find out more and I want to kind of track them down and see if I've got half siblings. And the sister said, I don't, this is my family. We're not doing that. And so I was interested in the different reactions from siblings, but also those, the men who had been sperm donors in the 70s and 80s.
Yeah, I never thought,
that someone can spit in a tube for $120 and get all these results now. So I was interested in that idea as well about, what can happen over time. And that's part of the reason I didn't want to do my DNA test, because I kept thinking, what happens in 30 years from now? What about my DNA?
Yeah.
Anyway.
And I was interested, like it spoke about the police side of using the DNA. Is that something that's like you researched? Is that you are able to do all that? And
yeah, I did a lot of research on it. And
what did you find out about that?
Well, I don't want to say too much because then I move into spoiler territories. But America's doing things slightly differently to Australia. And I did go to this seminar by a forensic detective and a scientist in DNA and listen to them talking about how they were using it and how they want to use it in the same way in Australia that they're using it in America. And since then, I have heard of a few cases where they're doing similar.
Yeah, I found that really interesting.
Yeah. It's terrifying and fascinating all at the same time.
Yeah, exactly. And I can see there's a lot of people watching. A lot of people have said hi. Hi to Belinda and Sina and Jessie and Liz and
Belinda,
Philip.
hello.
Don't forget, if you've got any questions for Petronella, please type them and I can read them out. Could you tell us, what was your first idea you had for The Last Trace?
It's funny, the first idea, because often there's three ideas that come together, and during so one of them was with a friend who was talking about who'd got this surprise in his DNA test, and another was during the pandemic. My mum started writing a book about her mother. So her mother was like a social campaigner and a town councillor. But she was one of six, and they owned a factory back in England, and there were all these all these connections. One of the brothers set up Foyle's bookshop in England, and another brother set up another factory, and so I just was interested then in those connections between past and present, and how when someone dies or they move away, like my parents were in England and they came here to Australia, you kind of lose a lot of that information and a lot of that memory. So part of the book is about memory, and so Lockie's having these memory blackouts, but also their mother has dementia and she can't remember, certain parts of their history, and they don't know what's true and what's not true when she starts telling them what happened back in America. I think, the DNA and the family and the memory kind of all came together, and brought it all together, really.
Yeah. And Philip said he loved this book and now has to raid his library for the back catalogue.
Excellent. Good job.
I have to say, Philip, I've read all of Petronella's books, and you certainly have to make sure you read them all.
Thank you, Jackie. I was just going to say, so Lockie's having these alcoholic blackouts, and that was also really interesting to research. So an alcoholic blackout, you're still conscious. You're not unconscious. You can appear sober. It happens when you drink too fast, and the brain can't make memories for longer than 3 minutes. So every 3 minutes you forget what's happening. And I read about this case where a doctor went home, drank a bottle of wine, and the next day went back to the hospital and said, "How's everything?" And they said, "Yeah, that patient you operated on last night's doing really well after the appendix you took out." And he went, "What?" And he had no memory of doing this operation. And the hospital staff, the nurses thought he appeared sober. He was obviously accessing his long-term memory and his skills. But yeah, he had no memory of the whole operation. And so that sort of explains Lockie, who's scared about these memory blackouts and worried about how he's behaved. Has he behaved in character, or has he behaved, out of character?
Yeah, and that's pretty scary. And like, I know I've read quite a few different things, like you said as well, and it does seem to be reasonably common for some people, doesn't it?
Yeah,
but it is very, very
seem,
scary.
Yeah.
Kim says your book sounds so interesting. I've loved the others, so she's looking forward to this one. So yeah, Kim, as I said before, totally you have to read it. And I can see you've got lots of books behind you. We always are interested to know what you've been reading yourself, and if there's anything you want to recommend to us.
Yes. Well, I'm doing an event next Wednesday near you in Hawkesbury Library with Burr Carroll, and so her book, One of Us is Missing, is a great, very, very taut, very tense, and that's set in Sydney, and that's a great read. I've just read JP Pavare's book, which is coming out next week, called 17 Years
I've got
Later.
that one. I love his books normally.
Yeah,
so
I basically read it in a night. So that was fantastic. And I loved Anna Downs' book, Red River Road, which came out in April, I think. Yes, yeah. There's so many good books. And then I've got Hayley Scrivener's new book to read.
Yes. Yeah, there's not enough time, is there?
No, not enough time.
And you mentioned you're coming out to Hawkesbury or Windsor Library so next week, I think, isn't it?
Yeah,
Yep.
Wednesday night.
And you have been doing a lot of book tours with your new book. And just reminding people watching, hope you are coming out to Windsor Library if you're not too far away, and might be able to have some dinner with Petronella and Bear afterwards, which will be great.
That'll be great. Yeah. Oh, I forgot. I was going to show everyone Betty the doll. Can I show?
Oh
Betty?
Yes, yep. We need to see Betty the doll.
In the book, there's a doll called Betty, and it's the only. I write fiction. Most things no characters are based on anyone, except for this one. This one is based on my mother's old doll. So in the book, Betty is a doll who Gloria, the mother, had, and she's asking for the doll in the nursing home, and but unfortunately the doll is quite ragged and not in a good
It sounded a little bit scary from what I...
Yeah, it is a bit scary.
Oh no. It is a bit.
Betty. Betty. Hello everybody.
She does look a bit scary.
She's actually, in the book, she's from 1968, but in real life, she's from about 1942. She's about 82 years old.
Yeah, wow.
And
she's quite a big doll, isn't she?
Yeah, she's like the size of a toddler.
Yeah, wow. You wouldn't want to wake up in the middle of the night and see that.
I know, and that's what they do in the book. The siblings do play. But for the book launch, I bought her a new dress, so I took her into Vinnie's support, and the women working there went, "Oh my God, what is that?" But then they helped me buy this beautiful new dress,
and she's got lovely pearls.
She got lovely pearls. So I took her to the book launch, and we parked in this scary car park. And afterwards, my teenagers had gone back to the car, and everyone's saying, "Hurry up, we need to leave." And the car was in this scary car park. I come around the corner, I go to open the driver's door, and there they've strapped Betty into the driver's seat. I did scream. Anyway, bye, Ava. She's there. But she's
no,
important.
thanks for sharing. Sina wonders if you do your research before starting to write your book, or you more research along with your writing.
I research as I go. I think often you don't know what you need to know until you're sort of in the middle of the scene or the story. And I love research, and I find it also fascinating. So I feel if I started researching beforehand, I'd never stop. I'd never actually write the book. I could just go down research rabbit holes and stay there forever.
Yeah. And is there anything you found with The Last Trace when you were researching that might have really surprised you?
I think a lot of things surprised me, but now I can't remember off the top of my head. I mean, I did a lot of research into sort of social work and mental health and climate grief. I think that's the thing. So I kind of have given. Lockie's normally optimistic, but at this point he's quite depressed about the world. And I think that was me from the pandemic and the floods and the bushfires, and that sort of climate grief about what can we do as an individual. And so I gave all that to Lockie. But then I researched climate technologies, and that really gave me a lot of hope. So that was good. It was a good, in terms of a personal journey for writing, it was good for me to move to that sort of hope. I always like a hopeful ending too. So
yeah. And Joanne's asked the question that I was just going to ask you as well. She wonders if you're working on your next book, and you can tell us anything about that.
I have started, but I've been a bit slow, and I've written the first chapter 10 times. So encourage me to get to the next chapter. I kind of know, I've kind of figured bits out, but I just have to, keep moving on. It's always nerve-wracking, the starting part, and I just need to keep writing. Right past the fear and just keep going. Yeah.
And I can't remember now, but are you're publishing one book a year?
One book every sort of 18 months.
Yeah, okay.
So,
Yeah. So we have to wait a little while until we see the next.
You have to wait till
We've
2026.
we've rushed to read your book and then
I know, that's what everyone says. I finished it. Next.
Yeah.
And I'm
Where's
like,
the
"Oh,
next one?"
Give me a minute.
And Kelly says she's looking forward to reading this one on the weekend.
Oh, excellent.
And she also wonders if you'd ever write a series. That's a good question.
Well, I was thinking about that, Kelly, because it's so hard starting again. Like, you finish a book, you've had all those characters and feelings and ideas, and then you start again with a blank page. And I did think, I mean, I've never written a series, but I feel like it must be nice to have the setting and a couple of characters. But I don't know. I like having different ideas and different types of characters. So maybe, I don't know. But I did think it might be easier.
And do you find the characters really stay with you afterwards? And if they do, is there any particular character that might have stayed with you more than the others?
Yeah, I like the characters I love. I do love them. But certainly in this book, sometimes the characters that stay with me are the horrible ones. And in this book, we have I've got this historical section set in 1968, and the father's quite religious and quite strict, and I think he stayed with me because he's so sure about his beliefs, which put him, up against his own family. And I think as characters, and I mean, I don't want to get into politics, but you think of someone in America who's so sure of their beliefs and the effect that can then have on the people around them and the society around them. And it can make for a really scary character.
And what do you hope that readers love about The Last Trace?
Well, I just hope, I mean, I don't want you to read it in the night, but I do want you to read it in a night because that's what I love. I just love being engrossed in a story and not being able to put it down and being invested. So, yeah, just being taken into the world of these people and needing to know what's happened. So I just want you all to get stuck into it. And I'll write faster, really, I will.
You keep up with our reading.
Yeah, I can't write one a day. But
And you've just been, I think you told me, to Melbourne and Canberra for The Last Trace. Have you had any interesting stories to share from any of the places you've visited, or people who've come and asked you some interesting questions?
Well, a bit like you. They said, we've finished that. Now hurry up with the next one. I keep having people come from out of my past, like my father's secretary's daughter came to my Sydney launch. So people that I don't expect to see, that I haven't seen for a long time. And I did dedicate the book to my family, and I've had family at almost every event, and and it was my niece's wedding. So I magically combined the book launch with my niece's wedding.
Nice.
So my uncles from England were here, and everyone. So that was lovely. Yeah.
No, that's nice. And Liz says, have you got any advice for an aspiring writer? And also, do you have a favourite place to write?
I think my advice for writers is to keep the story in your head. Like, it's hard. You can't write every day. Some people do write every day, but obviously if you're working and you've got family and everything, you can't write every day. But to keep the story in your head and think about the characters is really useful to keep it going. Like, when I first started writing, I'd write once a month or something, but I'd lost the momentum of the story. I hadn't been thinking about it. So yeah, try and keep the story in your head so that when you get to write, you can really get right into it. My favourite place to write is probably right here, but when no one's in the house. Since the pandemic, everyone's still here. They won't go away. They're all still here. So yeah, sometimes I go to the library, sometimes I go to a cafe. My husband does a lot of loud teleconferences.
Okay.
Sometimes I leave the house. I mean, I do love when we go on a writing retreat with other writers. That's amazing because you can really concentrate. And if we go to the Blue Mountains, that's such a beautiful place to be. So that's very inspiring. Yeah.
And any favourite drink or food while you're writing?
Popcorn. I love popcorn. Make my own popcorn with fennel and salt and pepper. And that's really, and Earl Grey tea. That's what keeps me going. That's my fuel.
Yeah, nice. And what have you got coming up?
So I, as in events, I'm in Double Bay Library on Double Bay in Sydney on Wednesday doing a wine and crime panel with Candice Fox and Danuka McKenzie, which will be fun.
Nice.
And then I've got a few online things. I've got a Sisters in Crime online thing. Sorry. And then next week with you guys. And then later down the track, I'm going to Port Macquarie and Sutherland Library and Bathurst Library and one other place, which I've forgotten.
Sounds like you're going to be very busy. Yeah, sounds like you're going to be very busy. And Kim says, is it ever harder when people you know read your books? That's an interesting question.
It is. And, because this book's about family and dedicated to my family. And then my brother saying, so it's not about me, is it? And I'm like, no, it's not about you. But he works, he's not a water engineer, but he's a solar engineer. Anyway, it's not about him. It's an amalgamation of people. But I do think, sometimes close family members or close friends think, oh, is that me?
Yeah.
But it never is. But a friend did say the other day, she said, I read your book and I forgot it was you writing it. I was so engrossed, and I said, "Oh, well, that's really what I want to hear, because that's perfect. Because she's not thinking about people I know, or that it's a story. So that's fantastic.
Yeah, no, well, that's great. Thanks for talking to me again, and really looking forward to seeing you next week. And hurry up and write some more books.
I will do. I'll be on to it tomorrow. That sounds wonderful.
And thanks to everyone who asked questions.
Thank you, everybody, for coming.
Thanks. Bye. Bye.